Good morning and welcome to today's daily reflection. I want to start by asking a question. What is or how would you describe faith? Whether faith in general or maybe your own faith. There are two phrases I've heard that have stuck with me. The first is faith never sleeps, while the second is extravagant faith. One such example of extravagant faith comes from today's set reading from Mark chapter 14, verses 1 to 9. Now the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread were only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or the people might riot. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came in with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you could help them any time you want, but you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." This is the word of the Lord. So who was the woman here? She appears out of nowhere. In John's Gospel, however, he identifies her as Mary of Bethany. Mary of Bethany is a good example of a person who has suffered much heartbreak. When her brother Lazarus died, she was inconsolable, not least because Jesus hadn't responded to her request, sent urgently through messengers to come to the aid of her brother who was seriously ill. After the sister's message was delivered, Jesus had waited 3 days. Only then did he prepare to go to their home in Bethany. When they sent the message, you could imagine their hope that Jesus could and would help them in their time of extreme need as their brother Lazarus lay dying. By the time he did finally arrive in Bethany, too late, the sisters would have had plenty of time, first for dismay, disappointment, and then anxiety, before pain and perplexity, and finally for the total cold misery that came with the total extinction of hope. As soon as Jesus did arrive in Bethany, Mary had run out of the house to meet him, and after her greeting she said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Martha was portrayed as a practical, uncomplicated sister, and here she was conveying to Jesus her great distress, letting him know quickly how deeply he had disappointed her. Mary, on the other hand, had stayed at home. While Martha knew Jesus was finally coming, she had ran to him. But Mary, for a while, stayed where she was. Maybe she stayed there because she didn't care what he did now. Such withdrawal can be an effective way of letting someone you love know how much he or she has hurt you. But Mary, in tears, did get up and go to Jesus. Those mourning with her obviously assumed she was going to the tomb to grieve, but instead she made for Jesus, collapsing in a heap at his feet, demonstrating to him expressively how bad things were for her. And I can imagine also she may have avoided looking at him. Her first words to Jesus were the same as Martha's, but they didn't have Martha's practical addition, which offered Jesus an apparently sensible way out of trouble. When Jesus didn't come, Mary thought he'd abandoned her, and she had given up on him. She was heartbroken. Through her tears, she also said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." That's all she said. She was heartbroken. Mary had set her heart on Jesus curing her brother of his illness. But after his death, she lost much more than her brother. To her, her trust had been betrayed by the very person to whom she had managed to give that trust to without reserve. The natural end to the story isn't the raising of Lazarus, but actually in what happened next, when the immediate excitement generated by the miracle may have possibly started to subside. Here is a dinner party. Lazarus may well have been one of the people who sat at the table with Jesus. Mary appears with a large quantity of ointment, so expensive that Judas thinks it's a sinful luxury. With that sinful luxury of perfumed ointment, in John's Gospel it is Jesus' feet Mary anoints, and then, as if that act of tenderness were insufficient to express what she felt, she then wiped his anointed feet with her long hair. But why did she do this? Mary had thought that Jesus had betrayed her trust, and that to that extent he didn't love her. And with the raising of Lazarus, her brother, she must have understood that she was wrong in supposing Jesus didn't love her. The recognition that he did, after all, love her might move her to some act of self-sacrifice. The moving image of her anointing Jesus and her attitude of love towards him have become woven into the very gospel itself, as Jesus in the story said it would be. Mary, who initially withdrew from Jesus heartbroken, then her turning back is equally passionate, unrestrained, unstinting. Even images of that fervent disciple Peter at his most generous are no match for this picture of Mary with her hair down, needless, heedless, anointing his feet with an outpouring of love. I want to sum up this story. I want to end it with this thought. The contrast between the way things looked to Mary while she was suffering and the way things looked to her when she finally understood. That should stimulate in each of us some quiet, some humbleness about the human ability to try to understand God's reasons for what we see as him allowing suffering today. With this thought, whatever you do this coming week, do it with compassion, with a smile. Bye for now.